Well, hello, everybody. It is really exciting to be back together with you again. We're starting off a new series today, and this is building on a topic that a lot of people are talking about right now. In particular, it's a generic topic. It kind of spans across so many various areas, functional areas of the organizations, as well as just what goes on around us in terms of the activities that we're involved in, the organizations, the communities that we're involved in, and it even spans beyond the topic of process management, although it gets right to the heart of some of the challenges that many of us often do face in the world of process management and in the world of change and continuous improvement. And so our topic for this series that we're kicking off today is around continuous improvement, specifically change management and team optimization. And it's often easy for us to get focused in around the very quantifiable elements of a BPM program or a continuous improvement program, and to avoid potentially or just put to the side as something that we'll come back to later, the discussion around change and change management and how to effectively navigate that environment. All right. So that's why we're going to pick this up as our next series. And our conversation will focus in around change and methodologies of change, how to effectively lead your organization through change. And this is a great, juicy area. I've found a spot that I get really passionate about and excited about because it gets to the human nature of the work that we do. And it's here in understanding change and understanding the methodologies that are available to us for successfully navigating change. It's here that we can create a lasting shift in our organizations where we can really get the underpinnings in place to truly transform our cultures, transform them into a culture that is built around continuous improvement and collaboration in that environment and accountability and a lot of those qualities that we've talked about in other sessions. These are the underpinnings. And so from here, we'll just kind of set this up. So from here, what we're going to really be kind of building around is this idea that it's nearly impossible to avoid resistance to change in business. It just, if we accept that, while we will get acceptance, we will get engagement, we will get a lot of enthusiasm on the front end. Let's be honest, change and the evolution, we go through waves. And you may experience this on your team where there's great enthusiasm and then that enthusiasm starts to wane. Well, what's going on behind that? And how can we kind of get people realigned around and energize for the next wave or continue to move people forward, right? So first, we need to accept it's nearly impossible to avoid resistance to change. Second, where we're going to be focused on this seminar is for us as a collective here and participants, for us to learn from the barriers that others have faced and the approaches that they've taken to overcome resistance. So we're going to do a lot of discussion and really digging into some great case studies and best practices, right? I want you to walk away with some very tangible things that you can put into action from each one of the sessions in this series, okay? So from this, what I want for you, you will receive tools that you can put into play that will help you anticipate where you might run into pockets of resistance because it's natural, it's going to come, it's fine. So let's plan for it. Let's anticipate what's underneath that and then to plan for it. So we can actually plan for that and how we want to manage through that, okay? So you're going to get some tools around that. The way I would set it up is to be thinking about successful change management. I've heard it referred to as the crown jewel, if you will, around organization management. And so as BPM professionals, as human resources professionals, as organization leaders, even as CEOs, CFOs, as the leaders of organizations as well, It is one of our responsibilities to be able to effectively manage the organization and lead people forward, manage the program, if you will, around BPM, manage the initiatives in creating cultures. So that is our imperative. And in order to be successful of that and in that environment, in order to really grow our teams and be successful in business and what we're out to achieve and our vision, absolutely, we want to be thinking about change and change management. The successful management of that really is a crown jewel. So my name's Diana Willis. I am the CEO of the Pendolino Group. I'm thrilled to be kicking off this next series where we're going to be focused, as these are our SNAP webinars. We build them into our certification program. Through the course, I'm going to go through the topics that we'll be covering during this course, and the conclusion of which, as you attend each one of these sessions and come through to the conclusion, you will receive a certification for that. So our discussion path in each one of our series, we will be taking a look at features of the continuous improvement culture. So we will always touch on that in each one of our sessions. We will be exploring the evolution or the evolving nature of change and change management, and how that is shifting in the environment that we all are operating in, where information flows so freely and there are so many varied opinions and perspectives. And so how do we actually build strategy inside of a world of continuous change? Okay, so we're going to zero in on that as well and really explore it together. In each session, we'll go through some best practices around change and change management, and we'll bring that also into the context, of course, of business process management, continuous improvement cultures. So we'll anchor back around that as well. And where it's appropriate to do so, I want to bring in, again, one of the platforms that we work with is ProMap. We work with several others, but this is one that I like to bring in as an element. So we'll take a look at that particular tool set as a way to actually, you can leverage it to introduce and enable a culture that's driven around BPM and continuous improvement. Okay, so how to actually leverage a tool set to support you on your change journey. All right. And then, of course, we'll have some open discussion, any points, anything you want to raise, any questions you want to raise during the session. Of course, I'm also available after the sessions, and we'll go into the next session highlights. So that's how our flow will go for each one of our sessions. Let's land on the evolving nature of change and change management. So what this course is about. There will be 10 sessions in this course. They're all going to be designed to walk you through the critical elements and stages of successful change management. We will do that through the exploration also of where there are hiccups, okay? So, it doesn't always go as planned, right? And so we want to explore that, and what can we learn from those failures, or from those little stumbles? What are the things we can learn from that and use those as a lab for us during these sessions to really be able to zero in on what does successful change management look like? As I mentioned, just recapping very quickly, upon completion of the session, all of our participants are going to receive the designation. You'll receive a certificate of certified change management professional certification from the Pendolino Group. Okay, and so our intention, we're going to zero in 10 key principles and stages. And what do those look like? All right, so we're going to zero in on those. Now, for today, as I mentioned, this is kind of teeing up the series. So I'm going to dive into now some foundational elements just so we get that anchored. And then next week, we're going to start doing our first dive into the first of the 10 topics and really explore it together. Okay, so for this week, what we want to be thinking about is this context. So historically, organizations, leadership, even us as human beings, right? Really what people desire most was stability, okay? Just show me what I need to do, for example, and I'll do it, and I'm going to be fine, and I'll come up with ideas, but I want to have some control of context, if you will. Okay, so stability, and as business leaders, that was historically what we drove toward as well, right? Shareholders, stakeholders in the organization, employees in the organization drove for stability marked by steady and predictable growth. Okay, so that's historically. However, I think everyone on our session today would agree that as a result, a byproduct of things like transparency in the market, the rapid pace of communication that takes place, the technologies that we have at our fingertips, the mobility of labor and people moving all around the world, actually the way that capital flows globally as well, okay? And the fact that instantly we can have communication with people anywhere in the world, okay? The fact of all of those things is that it's really blown that quote unquote comfortable scenario, it's blown that to smithereens, right? That's my word. It's just blown it apart. And I said, look, change is constant. How many times have you heard that, or have you seen that, or have you experienced that? Change is constant. So this is part of the rub. Okay, this is part of what we now as change professionals, change management professionals, what we now need to be thinking about in how do we help people navigate in this context, okay? Because the reality is that change is constant now. All right. And as a result, what that means is that in our organizations, on our teams and our businesses and our lives, that in most industries, most environments, okay, the fact that there's also global competition, it's requiring us to concentrate upon the fact that change is constant. And that is unfamiliar territory for most of us. Okay, so this is where our focus is and why our conversation around change management is incredibly important for all of us in our organizations. So from this standpoint, what we want to be thinking about is a few of these elements. First, successful companies are proven to develop a culture that just keeps moving all the time. I was on a call yesterday, in fact, with a couple of team members from one of our partner companies, and one of them said, you know, we were talking about a new opportunity and kind of shifting our approach, shifting our frame. And there was hostility in the room. People in the room were really upset in this conversation. And it was all being staged and presented as this is an opportunity. It's going to open up more opportunities for us. We're going to be able to serve our clients more effectively. All of the positives. But there was hostility in the room. And what they shared with me was they dug a little bit deeper and talked to some people offline afterwards and really dug into that. What was that hostility? And what they heard back was that people were getting tired, change fatigue. They were just getting tired. Okay. So here's the thing. If we think about what I just shared on this previous slide, that change is constant. If we approach that environment with the idea that instead we should be able to change, then settle in, get comfortable, and then go to the next level. Let's introduce another change. So if we approach it with that idea, okay, that is an old school approach, right? That is a historic approach. That is an approach that says stability. And then I'll introduce change, and then I'll be stable again. And then I'll introduce change, and then I'll be stable again, right? But that's not the world that we live in. We no longer live in an environment or a world where that is the reality. The reality is that change is constant. And so what we're out to do in this world of change, quote unquote, change management, is that we are actually going to be learning how to manage in an environment of continuous change. We are going to be learning through our tools in this series how to actually help people, those people on our teams, how to get comfortable being in a world with continuous change, with the ambiguity that brings, with the opportunity, with the unknowingness that means, with the noeticism of what that means. So successful companies, the data is showing right off the bat, where they have a culture that keeps moving all the time, they are successful in this new environment. Also, this is where we're going to focus in on the human side of change. All right. So change really occurs at the individual level. And that's what we want to really connect with in our conversations, is how do we bring things down to the human aspect? That's what this series is about, the human aspect of change. We're going to look at a variety of different tools and methodologies and sequences of approach. We're going to look at all of those things. Absolutely. That helps us manage our path. And in all of that, we're going to drill it down, and we're going to be looking at the human side of change. All right. Because change really happens at the individual level, the individual employee level, one person at a time. And so this is why I get incredibly excited about the fact you're on this session, you're taking the time to explore this and to really get comfortable with it, because this will make you a phenomenal change management professional. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and dive a little bit into kind of the flow, if you will. All right. So where change happens, and this is continuous, you need to really be thinking about, we start out with, what is our picture? Where are we headed? What's our strategic plan? Okay. Where do we want to go? What do we want to create that's different? What's important? The big why. Okay. So we always start out with that. That initiates or kind of kicks off this idea of change. And remember, this is continuous. So let's just imagine we're starting for the first time. All right. So we have that in mind. And then we start bringing people around, right? Don't we? We take our senior leadership, we have them carry the message forward. We get people trained on the specific skills that they need. We get them educated on where we're headed and why we're headed that way. So we bring those pieces in place, right? So we start to bring an alignment around skills and capabilities into what we want to create, what's going to be different, right? Then we start aligning how we're going to reward, okay? So whether it's around compensation, benefits, other elements of reward, that career opportunity, whatever those things are, we start bringing it in. And then we move into measuring. How did we do, right? So it's kind of the plan, do, check, act, if we think about it that way. It's setting the why, it's drilling into how, and then it's the specifics of what, and measuring how we're doing. There's a definite cycle here, definite process associated with this, right? So we always want to keep that in mind. There's an approach, okay? Underpinning all of this is the human aspect, okay? So what is happening at the individual level in this context? And how do we bring people into this conversation as an ongoing, continuous conversation, okay? Not one to get tired from, is it? It's really one to be able to get comfortable in, all right? So we're going to come back to that a few times, really help keep anchoring ourselves around that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the best practices at this higher level. Okay, so best practices around change management and the culture. So we already know, based on some of the early research, I call it early, it's the 1999 article, right, or that research, we already know that those organizations that are successful are the ones who are continually changing. They're not waiting, they're continually evolving. It's a part of who they are. It's part of their DNA, if you will, okay? So from that standpoint, what are some of the characteristics? I just want to hit on a few of these, and trust me, we'll go a lot deeper on them in the upcoming sessions. But just to plant a few flags here, so to speak. All right. So first of all, one of the practices that they do is that they take a systems view of change management. So in other words, they think methodically about the idea of change and change management, and they are continually managing that. They are continually evolving. Okay. Change is change. And they are systematic in the way that they do it. And they think systemically, okay? So they take a holistic perspective on this environment, okay? So not intended for you to necessarily be able to read this. We'll dig deeper into this one later. But this just kind of is intended to say, look, holistically and systemically, change affects everything. Okay. And so as we're digging into this, we're going to really explore, what does that mean? Now, the secret sauce and what these companies do phenomenally well is that they recognize change is a very personal experience. Okay. It is a very personal experience because we are introducing naturally something that is uncomfortable for every person in our organizations. As benign as it may seem on the surface, and as great as it may sound when we talk about, let's create a continuous improvement environment. Well, what does that mean? Oh, that means that I'm always going to be getting feedback on how I do my work? Well, wait a minute. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that. I mean, initially it sounds great, but after a while it's like, wow, I'm always getting feedback, right? So I'm kind of dramatizing that, right? But think about it. Anytime there's change, we're being pulled out of our comfort zone. We're being challenged to look at something in a different way. All right. And now we're being told that that's a good thing. Okay. So, phenomenal companies here, great teams. You, as a change management professional now, can adopt the understanding that where excellence lives here is in recognizing that change occurs as a very personal experience. And once you get this and you start creating change and managing change from this perspective, it's going to be golden for you. All right. You're going to see adoption of ideas. You're going to see people engaged and actually coming alive in that environment. It takes a very methodical approach to get there. I mean, that's what we're going to go through. Okay. All right. So, laying a foundation here. Again, maybe a little bit tough to read this one. I know it's a little bit blurry at the moment. We're going to dive into this much, much deeper. What this is based on, and this is about the phases of change, okay? And this is based on, some early work around what are some of the phases that people go through when change or something different is introduced into their environment, okay? And, as we're digging into this a little bit more, one of the things that you will be out to create is, rather than having someone go through these phases of, can I cope with this change? Or somebody saying, oh, yeah, fabulous, finally something's going to change. And these emotions, there's kind of wild swing emotions, right? Anxiety, happiness, then fear, feeling threat. Oh my gosh, how is this going to impact me and those around me, my tribe, so to speak, right? My friends, people I work with and spend time with. And then, oh, geez, people tend to bail at certain points. You know what? I don't want to be a part of this. It's bigger than I thought it was. I'm out of here. So they bail. Or they get into this space here and they just really start to question, what, this isn't for me. I didn't sign up for this. Boom, they're out. Or they become quite hostile and then they dig in, right? So we know we have some people that are like that as well. They may dig in, say, you know what, I'm going to resist this. I can outlast this change. How many times have you heard that, right? Oh, this is another new system. I can outlast this one. All right. So those are all signs. These are some of the things you're going to be listening for and watching for as you help people move through to get to that stage of acceptance and really moving forward and engaged. Now, cultures that are built around change, continuous change, AKA continuous improvement, right? Also known as a business process management environment, okay, a BPM space, which lives in the world of continuous improvement. Cultures that adopt this and the people that they attract move from this first stage to this first stage in a leap. They go, boom, boom, great. Next opportunity, next opportunity. Let's keep growing. Let's keep growing. Let's keep going. Let's keep growing. Okay. So what you're going to be learning in this session is how to short cycle this. Okay. And create a culture that is built on, we're continually moving forward. You know what? We live in this world of continually moving forward. That's one of the things that we're out to create in this session. Okay. So some of the things we're going to dive into details here. All right. Each one of our sessions we'll go deep into. We'll talk about the various aspects and dig into best practices around each one of these. It'll give us the opportunity to also look at what works, what doesn't work, some tools you can bring back to the organization. So here we go. First session, we're going to dive into the human side and how to address that human side in a systematic way. Okay, so you can really quantify a bit more around it. Where are people? Where are you headed? How are you going to methodically take them through this? Okay. Second session, we'll dive into the idea that change starts at the top and how do we leverage that? Okay, as well as we need to involve every level. So how do we take advantage of that to really accelerate change and make it part of the culture? All right. Ideas around making the formal case for change. So we're going to get into some more tactics in that area as well. And ultimately creating ownership. So how do you get people to take on the ownership of the change itself, or what the opportunity is that's coming forward? All right. Next session, when we go into session number 6, will be around communication, communicating the message, and then that will move us very nicely into session 7, which helps us assess the cultural landscape, kind of get an idea, where are we today, where do we want to go, what are those gaps, where are we going to take ourselves, right? What do we want to leverage that's good about what we have today as well? And then we'll go into the culture specifically, right, explicitly, right? What does that continuous improvement environment look like? What does a culture of change look like? All right. And sessions 9 and 10 are going to be, how do we deal with those unknowns and operate at the individual level? Okay. So those are all the pieces that we're going after. That environment of change, change management, I know you may be facing those resistance points, the pushback, as you're rolling out your BPM, as you're introducing an environment of continuous improvement, or as you're just looking to take your organization to the next level. All right. All of that is around this world of change and change management. All right. So that's where we're going to dive into. So that kind of wraps it for today. It's really what we're going after. Let me take a quick peek, see if we've got any specific questions that have come up for today. It doesn't look like we've got any specific ones. If you have anything, please just drop it real quick into this note. As I mentioned, this is going to be a 10-session series. I'm going to lay out the landscape, a few of the pillar points, the philosophical points as well, that really tee up the environment that we're operating in, recognizing that historically, change was something that might occur. Today, we live in the world of change. And what we're out to do is successfully manage and grow and engage in a culture that's designed as change. All right. So that's where we're headed. If you've got any questions in the meantime, please do feel free. You can reach out to me. Next week's topic, as I mentioned, now we're going to start doing a deep dive. We're going to address the human side systematically. What does that look like? So our foundation will be that any significant transformation is going to create people issues, period. Okay? So we have to acknowledge that and receive that. And in that context, we're going to go deep into how do we systematically address the human side. Okay? This is going to give you our first tool of a formal approach for managing change from that perspective, from the human side perspective, okay? And also, how do we blend that in the space that many of us are much more comfortable dealing with the data collection, analysis, and planning and all of that? Because let's face it, data doesn't talk back, right? Okay, so what we're actually going after is that we want to have an approach that integrates the program design, the decision making, all of those aspects, and tees us up to operate at the human level. All right, so if you have any questions between now and next week, please just give me a holler. You can email me directly, info@pendolinogroup.com. You can email me at diana@pendolinogroup.com. If you want to grab a few minutes on the phone together, please feel free. My time is yours. Go ahead and you can just set up a quick 20-minute meeting with me. All yours, all ears, sounding board for you based on what you're facing at the moment, what you're working through, and also what your goals and objectives are, which will help me shape this content even more effectively for you. All right. Thanks for joining me today. Really looking forward to being on this journey together. We'll start up our first deep dive next week, and looking forward to creating an environment of change, continuous improvement, and highly, highly effective business process management. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.